Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at weather next week to 10 days. In today's video, we'll start off by looking at the Arctic Oscillation, however, because it looks like it's going to be tanking over the coming few days. It's going very negative, which indicates and tells us that there's going to be northern blocking over pole. And blocking is quite interesting because it's Beirut cold weather. Now, it's only October, so we're not going to be seeing anything particularly cold coming up, although some northeastern parts of Europe might get some early snowfalls next week. I wouldn't be surprised if places like Norway, Sweden, maybe Finland, Estonia, places like that might get some early snow next week. For us, we're probably just looking at a continuation of pretty cool, cloudy weather, easterly winds, and maybe later next week the chance of some heavy rain in the south. That's a very long way off, and we'll have to wait and see on that. But overall, the weather patterns look very unusual for this time of year. This is normally the time of year where the polar vortex is strengthening over Greenland and the North Pole, and the westerlies are normally coming across the Atlantic into Europe, producing bouts of rain and strong winds, gales, and autumnal conditions, classical autumnal conditions. It looks very different to that over the coming week to 10 days, and I'll show you the charts in a moment. Some quite unusual charts for this point in the year coming up. Doesn't necessarily mean anything for the winter, but if these charts were to continue for the next sort of 8 to 12 weeks, or these weather patterns were to continue for the next 8 to 12 weeks, then we would have to start thinking about cold winter conditions. But of course, it's very early days to be talking about that. Before I get on with today's video, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. You'll be helping us to pay for our website, and thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages which own our content. When you watch the videos back up again, it does help to pay for GansWeatherVids.com. So this is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. And what you need to know with this is that the black line is where the Arctic Oscillation has been. The red line's at the end where the Arctic Oscillation is being forecast by the GFS ensembles to go. So this is where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation right way back into the summer. We go back to the start of June, which is just there. And this bit at the end is the forecast part of the chart. So you see basically through the summer and into September, this is 1st of July just here, this is August, 1st of August just there, this is 1st September just here. You can see that basically through the summer and into September, the Arctic Oscillation was trending positive. So the black line was above here, which is neutral, and generally positive Arctic Oscillation, which tells us that the Azores high was strengthened. We know we had a lot of ridging from the Azores high this summer. It was one of the reasons we had such a hot summer across not just the UK, but many parts of Europe as well. And we also had low pressure in around Iceland and the North Pole. So the Arctic Oscillation being positive was one of the reasons that we had quite a warm, even hot summer. Just remember with these charts that the weather is driving this. The Arctic Oscillation is not driving the weather, it's the other way around. The weather drives the index, if you like. So just as, say, the Financial Times share index is driven by the movement of the share prices through the course of the day, so the Arctic Oscillation is driven by what the weather, what the atmosphere is doing. So it's the weather that drives the index, not the other way round. But it's been positive with the Arctic Oscillation through the summer. Now we're trending negative. See, the black line has gone negative, and it's forecast to go even more negative over the coming few days. So this takes up towards the middle of October, just here, and very negative Arctic Oscillation by then, going down to this sort of part of the chart, and that tells us that we have got a lot of blocking appearing over North Pole, because you would only get the Arctic Oscillation going that negative if there's lots of blocking over the North Pole. So we've got blocking coming up, and that is going to produce cooler than average conditions for us. And some parts of Europe, particularly the northeast of Europe, I think we'll get potentially an early taste of winter. North Atlantic Oscillation is very similar. Instead of reflecting the atmospheric setup in the North Pole, this is reflecting the atmospheric setup in the North Atlantic. And you see, but actually through the summer, the NAO, quite interestingly, was a little bit on the negative side, particularly through particularly through July and into August. Then in September, we had all that hot weather, it went positive. The latest is that we're still just about positive with the NAO, but it looks like it's going to be going negative also. So this tells us that the westerlies are going to be weaker, going to be reduced over the coming couple of weeks probably, and it goes along with the blocking that's over the North Pole as well. So instead of the default Atlantic setup, which is westerly, high pressure around the Azores, low pressure around Iceland, looks like we're going to be doing things a bit differently through into the middle part of October. Quite unusual for this time of the year. So these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts. We've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which you'll look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure and blue to low pressure. So this is the reason the Arctic Oscillation is going negative. All of this red up here is high pressure. It's blocking over the pole, and you see it's a very extensive area of blocking as well. It extends right from sort of Greenland and Iceland, which is just here, over towards the Pacific side of the pole, which is over here, and of course this is the North Pole just here. So a very extensive blocking area of high pressure up over the pole is the reason that the Arctic Oscillation is being forced into negative territory. Remember, this drives the index. The index doesn't drive this. So we get the blocking in place over the pole, and that sends the Arctic Oscillation crashing. We've got high pressure up here, and then conversely, we've got low pressure underneath it. Now, we have to keep an eye on this area of low pressure just here. This is the mean flow chart for the next 7 to 10 days. So this will take us to around the middle of October, around the 15th, 16th of October. Have to keep an eye on this area of low pressure. If this was winter, we'd be looking at snow coming up with that low pressure. It's only October, so it could be heavy rain. Could have a bit of a soaker in the second half of next week. However, that's a very long way off for what is a really unusual pattern, so models aren't going to handle this very well. It could well be that this low pressure will be down here somewhere actually when we get to the point, and will just be generally cool and dry. But that low pressure will need keeping an eye on. The GFS is very similar. That's ECM, of course. It's the GFS, and again, we've got all of this red up to the north, all of this blocking. Low pressure is underneath it, and of course the flow is easterly northeasterly, so it's going to be pretty cool. If it's winter, it will be very cold. And again, we do have to watch out for this low pressure to the south of the UK. That gets up towards particularly the southern part of the country, could bring a lot of rain through the second half of next week, to turn very wet in the south. So that will be something to keep an eye on over the coming few days. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average in terms of the upper air temperature. Remember, these are for the upper atmosphere. So below average right now, trending cooler over the next few days, then staying below average into the middle part of the month. This is 15th of October, just here, where we are cooler than average at that point. Beyond that, there is a fair amount of scatter, but still the trend generally is to keep things on the cooler side. So actually this looks like a solid couple of weeks of cooler than average weather coming up, albeit at the extended range of the ensemble. As ever, there are outliers, there are members that are going warmer than average, but generally most of these members of the GFS ensembles are looking cooler than average. Precipitation is interesting. A couple of days ago, it looked very dry down in south. This is the ensemble for London, by the way, and it looked very dry. Now we are increasing the rain potential. So just here, these precipitation spikes there are associated with showers coming in off the North Sea because of this easterly flow. I think we will be dragging in showers off the coast. They'll be particularly affecting eastern parts of the country. This area of precipitation spikes just here is associated with the chance, no more than that, the chance of the deep area of low pressure moving up from the south. If it does push up from the south, it's on a height anomaly chart, if that low pressure does push up from the south, later next week, in around a week's time, Thursday, Friday next week, we could see some really wet weather down in the south. It'll be very cool and wet as well. These are the temperature anomalies of the coming week. This takes us from Thursday the 6th through to Friday the 14th of October. And overall, it's cooler than average, as it is for most parts of Europe. Precipitation anomalies look drier than average in the north and west, but notice near normal to actually a bit wetter than average in the south and southeast. Again, this is a change on what we saw a couple of days ago, when it just looked very solidly drier than average. Not the case so much now. We still have these drier than average conditions over Scandinavia. That's due to the high pressure there. But for us, particularly in the south and the southeast, could actually be a bit more unsettled than we anticipated a couple of days ago. So we'll go back to the GFS, the old GFS version from weathercentral.de. Unfortunately, the new charts that I've been using over the past few days aren't available today because the new version of the website is down. But you're familiar with these anyway. We've looked at these over the years on most days, actually. So this is sort of the old version of the GFS and ECM charts from Weather Central. This is for Sunday. It's the GFS. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia. We're bringing in this easterly wind, so cool and potentially showery in the east. We move through into Monday. It looks like there's some sort of trough coming in off the North Sea there on Monday. That could just enhance the shower risk, maybe bring some longer spells of rain in towards eastern parts of the country on Monday. Then it turns drier for Tuesday, but there's that low pressure down to the south and southwest. Got to keep an eye on that through the remainder of next week. That pushes ever closer towards us, and it is very close to the south of the country by Thursday. This is Thursday 13th of October, week away. That low pressure is across northern France, just coming into the channel. That could produce a lot of very wet weather for the southern parts of the country through the second half of next week. That low pressure then moves away to the east, and high pressure reasserts itself to the northern country. Look how blocked it is as we go through towards the middle part of the month. This is Saturday 15th of October. The high pressure is repositioning. It's actually retrogressing a little bit. It's instead of the typical zonal flow, which is normally that way, west to east. What's going on here is that the high pressure is retrogressing east to west, and it's actually starting to become centred around Iceland. So very unusual to see that in October, which is normally a very westerly Atlantic dominated month. Generally, the weather, in terms of the weather, it means that it's staying cool and probably mainly dry, perhaps with an increasing risk of night frost. By the time we go through to day 10, which is Sunday 16th of October, that high pressure is in there over Iceland. Firm blocking feature, low pressures around the Azores, so it's a complete flip of what you normally get in October, which is high pressure around the Azores and low pressure around Iceland, and that's starting to pull cold air down, particularly to the northeast of Europe. I would have thought there might be some early tastes of winter by that point coming into parts of Scandinavia and northeastern Europe. For us, if you follow the isopath back, the air is originating from quite a long way north, so it's not going to be warm. It's going to be pretty cold if that comes off, and maybe with chance of showers in the east. But it's really the pattern that is interesting, not so much the weather. What the weather's doing won't be all that interesting, but the pattern here is very, very unusual for October. We go through into the ECMWF. Finally, I've been going on for a long time. So the chart for Monday looks like this. Again, bringing in this easterly wind. There's a bit of a trough in the North Sea. That could enhance the shower risk, particularly for the south and east on Tuesday. Wednesday, there's the low pressure that the GFS has close to the country in the second half of next week. That's forming around Spain and France. What does the ECMWF do? It moves some of the energy up across France, but doesn't look as unsettled for the second half of next week here as we see with the GFS. So a lot of uncertainty for the second half next week. The general idea is still to have high pressure in over Scandinavia, still have the wind from the east, so staying cool, just whether it turns really wet in the south or not. Through into the weekend of 15th, 16th of October, very little change. Low pressure still being blocked out in the Atlantic. High pressure still in over Scandinavia. Doesn't get it to Iceland and Greenland as the GFS is doing, but that's still a pretty blocked and, I have to say, pretty abnormal sort of pattern for the middle of October. So we're going to wait and see where this is all going. It might be, but in the end, what's going to happen is that all of this blocking will just collapse and we'll revert back to our normal westerly autumnal type weather, with bouts of rain and gale force winds coming in off the Atlantic. But for now, this looks very unusual in terms of what the weather patterns are doing. Let's just wait and see where all this is going. If this carries on into November, then we have to start reappraising our ideas for November, because by November, such blocking would be producing some pretty cold conditions. So let's just wait and see where this is going. In the next week to 10 days, though, the weather patterns are looking like remaining very unusual for the time of year, blocking over Scandinavia, possibly ending up over Iceland and Greenland by day 10. And we might also bring some very wet weather down into the south as well in the second half of next week. That's uncertain, but it's something to keep an eye on. Right, that's all for now, and thanks for watching. Tomorrow it's JMA Friday, so look at the month-ahead look ahead with the Japanese and CFS B2 models. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.